Hi, I am Skylines Timelines and this is the fourth episode of Kaarenuoma. In this series I try to take a look at realistic city evolution, how a tiny settlement with medieval farming would develop into an urban city. I will try to link Finnish history to the series to give you some idea how pre-industrial society has evolved through recent Nordic history. In this episode in particular we move on another 20 years. It is supposed to be the late 1930s. That 20 years saw us Finns getting our independence, a huge rise of the economy, and first signs of consumer culture. New inventions would appear and a lot of services would spread to the countryside. In the largest scheme of things, Finland would still remain a relatively poor, heavily agricultural country. A borough like Kaarenuoma would gain a lot of new residents. Industry has taken off seriously, and the local sawmill company has expanded to the furniture industry. A huge success story can become a leverage for the entire town. Establishing itself as a borough and trying to bring more commercial activity would also bring loads of wealth to the community, thus making it less dependent on the forestry industry. What would an early Finnish borough then have? Of course, the old services like school, fire department, post and health center would remain. A bank, marketplace, library and smaller apartment buildings would appear. It needs to be said, however, that again the game forces me to have more commercial buildings than what would have been realistic. Also, while not being located in the center of the borough, this new wealth would also bring parks and sports facilities nearby. Larger countryside villages would grow around the schools. A lot of houses for working people are built nearby. The school also attracts a lot of new smallholders and the cooperatives like Flowmill and Parla are built nearby. Otherwise, the countryside sees similar development as earlier. Farms get smaller, but there are more farms. Forests get chopped down, but not as heavily as new materials arrive from overseas and forest owners start to understand the value of the green gold. Talking about green gold, the forestry industry takes a whole new step forward. The company that holds it decides to move most of its functions to nearby harbor, and the new rail line is constructed right next to it. At the same time, the worker village starts to reorganize as the workers build their new houses on the island designated for them. A new wonderful thing appearing across Finland is asphalt. Rising wealth and attempts to push the economics allowed a couple of main roads of Finland to be paved. Also, back in the day, when Finland was still fairly poor, only very few had a private automobile. Buses and trains were quite common ways to travel longer distances. It probably isn't any surprise that I decided to implement all of those to the town. During this series I've talked about the game mechanics forcing me to do things ahead of the timeline. Now we've reached the episode where a lot of things are actually realism. For example, electricity became a fairly widespread during the 1930s, although quite a few households were still without electricity. The same thing could be said about commercial buildings. They are still way too frequent here, but not totally absent. Anyway, that is all. I will leave you with overflights. I do apologize for missing the release date I promised you. And at the same time I need to announce that the next episode will come in 2 months, on the 10th of October. Thanks for watching and remember to subscribe and stuff.